Good day, everyone, and thank you so very much for joining Charms MediHelps Foundation in its first annual Men's Health Events video series. You know, ladies, they've stood behind us, they cheer for us, they support us, and they don't have their own special space, right? We don't have the time or the opportunity to say, hey, well, what's on their minds? How can we help them? How can we also make sure that their health is being addressed? So this month is extremely important to me because I want to see our men, especially my husband, who I've been married to for 30 years. I want to see our men be able to stand up and, take care of their families. More importantly, take care of themselves. So that is the reason why the Charms MediHelps Foundation went ahead and asked, and graciously I was told, yes, Sandra, when can I help you? What do you need me to do? What are my topics? And I actually had to chuckle a little bit when all of them asked me, what am I going to talk about? I said, you got to be kidding me. You go to the barbershop every 2 weeks, every month, and y'all sit around and talk. And you're asking me, what am I going to talk about? Well, how about you take some of that barbershop language and put it together, mix it up, and say, okay, well, I can talk about that. I feel comfortable talking about that. I know that some of their subjects they talk about in the barbershop are left in the barbershop for that very reason. They don't want us ladies to know. But there's got to be some special topics that are important to them that they can share with us that, once again, not only help themselves, but help us ladies be able to better take care of them, and help us ladies be able to better stand in their corner and root for them and encourage them, make sure they're empowered to do what they can do, so that guess what? We can't do this alone, ladies. We need the men. The men need the women. We need to do this together. It's called collaboration. So that's what we need to do, and that's what we intend on doing. So for this evening, or I should say today's video series, we have Mr. Barry Holmes. Now, I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes, and I'm going to let Barry introduce himself and all the wonderful work that he does for his organization that he represents, which is Genesis Medical Research Group. I'm going to open it up and let him go ahead and tell us who he is, what he is, and why he does what he does. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sandra. I appreciate you so much. And thank you to Charms as well for this platform and this opportunity to be able to speak on such a great topic that needs to be addressed. As she said, my name is Barry Holmes Jr. I'm the Vice President of Genesis Medical Research Group. And myself, and along with my CEO and team, we have created a diversity certification that empowers healthcare professionals and, more importantly, patient-facing healthcare professionals with the understandings and educations, and more so the credibility that they need to be able to engage diverse populations and recruit them into clinical trials. The journey has started in 2020, October of 2020, and it has been a very tumultuous one, definitely. Just trying to basically, change the narrative of the industry and get them to understand that the ways of doing things in one way, they need to be addressed and redefined and looked at for what they are, and move forward in unity and equity for all, so that we can all be successful.
Thank you so much for that. Now, you said a couple of key words, and before we go forward, what I do want to do is I want to stop and I actually want to ask you, what are clinical trials? What exactly are they? Because I know you said that that's what your organization does. What is it?
So by definition, a clinical trial is a type of research that studies new tests and treatments, and it evaluates their effects on human health. That's a very, very a good but broad definition of it. There are many different layers to it, and in specifics, especially when it comes to the different types of diseases that they're going to be, embarking upon it in their experiment, to understand what it is and what it does, and how they can, prevent it overall through the different levels of testing that they have. So understanding that a clinical trial is something that is probably the safest that you can, the safest time in regards to being tested and looked at and focused upon in regards to what a specific medicine does for you.
And I thank you so much for that, because plenty of people hear clinical trials, right? And, we know that there's a health literacy issue in this country. So when we say clinical trials, we as professionals know exactly what a clinical trial is. We know, basically how they are ran. But for the average individual, person, regardless of social economic status, they'll hear clinical trials and automatically it's a turnoff, because they hear that word clinical. And with that word clinical, what a lot of times happens is that people actually get that white coat, right? They see white coats, right? You say clinical clinician, it equates to white coats, right? And there are a lot, especially in the communities that both CHOM serves as well as Genesis Medical Research has a close relationship. There's a lot of people who, when you say clinical, see that white coat, and it automatically sets up a level of fear. And we together as a society have not yet learned how to overcome those fears. So that's why I asked you, could you break that down? So I'm so very thankful that you broke it down, so that now when people hear about clinical trials, they'll have a little bit more knowledge about what a clinical trial is, right? It's not a white, it's not somebody in a white coat coming to, do a bunch of things to you. It's not like that. It's more so, especially nowadays, it's more so the patient is told, informed, given information about what the study is about. And so it's not anything for them to be afraid of, but it's something for them to try. And that's what we're trying to get, is to have more people, especially for this month of June, which is Men's Health Month, men involved in becoming participants in clinical trials. Now, my next question to you is, what are 3 important reasons why men should participate in clinical trials?
Very good question. I would say first and foremost, for my men, and I'm speaking more so at the moment to the gentlemen between 35 and 45, just because they hold a special place, because I float within that area and I don't want to tell my age. But we need to start taking a more active role in our healthcare. We are at a higher risk for heart disease, lung cancer, diabetes, prostate cancer. I mean, it's a long list. And understanding that fact and understanding the history and things that we know within our own families and, our friends and things of that nature of how genetics go, and, how we have seen our parents and our uncles and grandparents not go to the doctors, not make sure that they're staying up on their checkups and make sure that they're following along with the directives from their physician. And we know what the outcomes are from that, because we're now within that area and age where our loved ones, our elders, are dying off. And we're finding that, there were things that were going on with them that they did not make privy to us. They did not, let us know that they were, suffering with or going through, and that there were preventatives that could have been done to, make sure that they had something of an easier going in their life and before they passed along. And understanding that fact and understanding that we're here to make sure that our families and our children get the education that they need as well. So we have to take charge of what's going on with our health. We have to take charge. We have to make sure that we step up and step out and take that, what some may consider a risk, and talk to our doctors, tell them what's going on with us, tell them, about those aches and pains that you feel in your back when you wake up and you can't move and your legs are locking up and the tinglies in your fingers. Don't be afraid to speak on that. Don't be afraid to tell that doctor, this is what's going on with me and I don't know what it is, and I really need help. My next thing I would say that is really piggybacking off of that whole statement is just that being naive is no longer an option. not knowing what's going on, going with home remedies and Googling, trying to find out on YouTube, what you can do as a remedy. Like, we can no longer do that. We have to stand firm in education and find out what's truly going on and not be afraid to step up and tell someone what's going on with us. And lastly, I would say, because understanding that what you're doing when you do this, when you step up and step out for yourself and for your family, ultimately, is that you are creating data, and data is king, and data is what we need in order to progress forward with the betterment for all. And by coming in and presenting yourself and your problems and ailments, it allows us to be able to get that data to track what's going on with you and to make sure that we get you the best care possible.
And thank you so much for that. And I truly agree. A large part of what has happened with our society, and I don't want to just say, because this is not just for African American men or our Latino brothers, this is for all men. And what I do want to say is this: a lot of us do not have our family history. Right. We don't know what our family history is. We've got to start sitting down and having those conversations with our family in reference to what was going on before. Mm-hmm. Where, we're at a different stage in time where we need to know that information. I tell people all the time when I get on this family history kick, I remember when, growing up with us, everybody went to Nanny's house. Right. Mm-hmm. The whole crew, all of us went to Nanny's house. That was our safe spot for the holidays. Mm-hmm. When we were at that safe spot, the kids sat in the kids' room and adults sat in the adult room. Nobody was writing anything down. The internet wasn't around, so there wasn't anything, and you can't go back and look, right? My oldest sister, when she passed away from a very rare heart condition. And so when we found out what the diagnosis is, my mother says to me, well, I don't know where she got that from, because nobody in this family has that condition. And I had to ask her, I said, my mom, who knew what we had? Like, where's the history at? Like, who knew what we had back then? Who's keeping track of this? Were we just dying off? And we were just dying off and nobody said, hey, what did she die from? Right? There's no records, right? And so we don't know, which is one reason why in my journal that I wrote, I have a space in there for family history, because our family history, just like you just said, is so very, very important for people to know, for everyone to know, so that they could take it with us. Our family history is very important for us, and especially for you gentlemen that are out there, because as you populate the society and you bring children into this world, you don't want to bring them in with an empty slate, right? You don't want to bring them in and they have no idea where they came from. They might know who they came, who the mom and who the dad is, but they really have no understanding about the history that led up to them. Everybody, all of us have a history that leads up to who we are right now, today, right? You don't want your kids to be left behind thinking, well, my dad did this, but I don't really know that much about him. Write it down. Even if you don't get along with the mom, write it down somewhere, because the kids shouldn't have that responsibility of being, the owner of, okay, mom and dad don't get along, so I don't know anything. Write it down and put it in a pamphlet, a booklet or something, and then make sure that young man or that young lady gets it. And then make sure that as you're thinking about participating in a clinical trial, you're thinking about what Barry just said, as a family. You're thinking about the fact that, I'm doing this for me, but I'm also doing this for my family, right? I mean, and that's to be, and that's a lot to be said about the fact that those are the things that you have to think about. So I'm certainly glad you mentioned them as important factors. Now, let's get to this word. This word we hear all the time, right? And as a patient advocate, I cringe when I hear acronyms. I cringe when I hear people labeling things that should be labeled, they should actually be totally spelled out so that we get it as healthcare professionals. We get it.
Right.
But the patients who we're trying to serve and who we're saying we're looking out for, they have no idea. DEI could be some of anything. I mean, it really can be some of anything. And so, without us actually explaining what it is, my question, not so much just to you, but my question to whoever's listening to this video is, without us explaining to the patient what is the D in DEI, the E in DEI, and the I in DEI, what exactly it is and why they should be wanting to know what it is. They just don't, because we're simplifying that to we're simplifying it to make it easier for us to digest. And
Right.
I'm being honest. When I say us, I'm talking about healthcare professionals. We're simplifying that DEI terminology to make it easier for us. But in reality, those who we're serving, which are the patients, have no idea what it means, that it goes right on over their heads, right? And so
Yes.
when we're trying to bring them in and include them and stuff, a lot of times it doesn't happen. So as far as that D, that word diversity, what does it look like in clinical trials for men who want to be or are considering being participants in a trial?
So as a whole, men, and right now I'm going to speak in regards to my African and Hispanic Americans. We do understand, we do know. I don't want to say we understand. I said we do know and recognize the importance of clinical trials, despite the underrepresentation. We really do know, but because of what we already spoke on, that trust factor, that unknown factor, that bridge, that gap that has existed, for decades, it still is a hindrance. It still is a deterrence. And African American males constitute roughly about 14% of the U.S. population, but they only account for about 3% of participants in clinical trials. And that's a study that was just done recently for cancer drugs. That means that African Americans men are only represented at 22% of the expected level. These type of disparities can't go on. They can't exist. And understanding everything that I've already spoken on in regards to stepping up and stepping out, these numbers need to raise in order for the test to be able to show positive results in regards to the diversity, the equity, and inclusion in the clinical trials. We need to be able to participate in these trials in order to raise these numbers and to get the proper, true results from the trials that they are participating in and that they're conducting.
And so I'm going to go to the equity piece. What does the diversity, we just talked about diversity. What does the equity piece look like in clinical trials for men?
So the equity piece is in regards to all of us, all men now, is the fact that there is the very little balance. There's about 75% of Caucasian males that participate in clinical trials, and only about 8% in African American men. The balance needs to shift. And in order for the balance to shift, there are different disparities that are going to need to be, addressed and overcome in order for the balance to be able to move up. There are many different, organizations that are tackling those type of disparities and those type of things that go on in the community for the men. But overall, as I've already spoken on, us as men need to be able to get educated, find out where these trials are participating at, the things that they're going to need to know in regards to paperwork that they're going to be filling out, the clinical practice paperwork that is going to explain to them what's going on with the trial in order for them to be more comfortable.
And then this leads me to my next question. I know that currently you're working on the diversity piece for Genesis Medical Research. And so I give you your kudos for that, because the work that you're doing in making sure that DEI, that diversity, equity, and inclusion piece is real. It becomes realer for the African American and our Latino brothers and sisters. I know that there's a lot of hard work, because I know you personally. So I know there's a lot of hard work and a lot of blood and sweat and tears that you're putting into the work that you're doing. So as far as, we'll take this separately and say, as far as Genesis Medical Research Group, what do you see in the pipeline for Genesis becoming involved in ensuring that, and I don't want to say ensuring, but helping or assisting is a better word, assisting with making sure that inclusivity piece, where all patients are included, not just the women, not just the Caucasian, not just the Black or the brown, but that all patients are included in that DEI part of clinical trials. What do you see in the pipeline for it as it impacts the male sector of clinical trials?
So GMRG is fully committed to equity and inclusivity for all, in all diverse populations. We understand that education and explanations must be presented in order to really build back up the trust that has been, left in between patients and the community. And we've created our platform basically based upon understanding that reach one, each one, teach one. And we know that with the education and the more people that we are able to reach and connect with, we are able to make sure that, the inclusivity levels are where they're supposed to be. We have also created a community page platform that we will be shortly putting out, that we're going to want to connect with community organizations such as CHOMS, in order to be able to not only help assist them in anything that we can, they can do it that as well with our community events that we have going on as well.
And I thank you for that, for giving us that information. And I'll tell you what, I thank you even more, because in what you just said, what I heard, one, was my famous motto, each one, teach one, reach one, because it doesn't do enough if all we're doing is teaching, right? If all we're doing is teaching, we're reaching, we're not doing enough. We have to take everybody has to teach and then turn around and reach. And what I also heard what you saying is that word community. So that word community, actually, it equates to collaboration. And there is strength in numbers, no matter where those numbers come from, there's strength in numbers. So if we can take those numbers and we can continue to each one, teach one, reach one, and remodel and revote and and revitalize and keep that model and keep that going, we'll be so much further ahead. It's like we have the limelight, right? And the limelight goes away. And then we're back at the beginning. But what keeps that limelight on is when we actually collaborate together to push, because if you could back one up, but you better believe that because we're collaborating, because we got the community involved, when you back that one up, somebody else coming behind you, right? There's no more gaps of, we gotta wait a year or two to get the stuff together. If we're doing it now, we're doing it up front, right? We collaborate up front. Boom. Boom, there you go. You can't, we ain't going nowhere. You give it one, there come another one. And that's actually going to be the key to sustainability within the healthcare sector, within clinical trials, within anything, is the fact that we're building these networks of, we're here together, right? We might have a different way of doing things, but the collaboration piece is there. Right. And so as long as we keep
it's the alliances that are going to be able to change the narrative in the industry. The alliance, it's understanding that no matter what you're doing across the board, across the table, there are still going to be things that you can contribute to the overall table that will bring us all together and really push the narrative towards success. Understanding
Right.
that, you know, even though it's a business, we all still have a certain agenda that we all can collaborate on.
Right. And the thing about it is, look, we could do our own separate, like we can go at it our own separate ways. It doesn't make a difference how we're going at it, as long as we're going at it. And as long as if we
Right.
see this one over here, you know, like not only say lagging, but we see this one over here having struggles or having problems, we say, hey, come on, let's help him get up to the same speed that we're all up on. And we keep, like you said, the alliances. We keep it moving forward. If we don't keep it moving forward, what's going to happen? Especially with our men, right? You guys, you guys have to form alliances. There are young men that are looking at you, trying to figure out life, trying to see where life is going, trying to see, well, hey, maybe even if I don't get, you know, even if I don't become a clinical trial participant, what kind of jobs can I get in the clinical trial space, right?
Yeah.
What kind of work is there? So if we as alliances are building and we're coming at it, right? The men are building and coming at it. The young men have something to strive for. They have a game plan to say, okay, well, you know, yeah, I would consider being in a clinical trial. No, I wouldn't. They'd have the answers to what are the benefits and risks, right? Because on anything, there's a benefit and there's a risk, but they'll have a better way of understanding what it is when we come at it. We come at it as a collaboration piece instead of as, well, yeah, well, they said this, but then the other one said that. And that's it, you know, that doesn't work for me. So I'm very, very thankful that you brought that up. And then my last question to you is this.
Okay.
And this isn't so much this question isn't so much in reference to Genesis Medical Research Group, but it's an overall question. And I want you to actually sit back and think about, okay, what does the future look like for men men as participants in the clinical trial space when they are coming against the different challenges or the different barriers that might populate for them? And we know that different ones are populate for different people. No, you know, well, some have the same challenges, barriers, some don't. But I want you to take yourself out of and away from Genesis Medical Research. And I want you to answer that question as if you're just, you know, you're someone and you're a researcher and you're thinking and you know, your mind is like thinking about the future. What does the future hold for where, you know, the challenges and the barriers that men face as far as them becoming clinical trial participants?
It's a very good question. I would say the future is bright. I would truly say the future is bright. Just because I understand and I see the narrative that's painted in the industry and throughout the world. And I know that right now there's a heavy weight on the government and FDA mandates, and you know, Congress putting out different, you know, laws that are making companies have to create diversity action plans in order to truly be able to engage patients and recruit diverse populations. So I believe that a lot of the disparities and hindrances that we face as men, we're going to see some of them subside, and we're going to start to see, you know, avenues and lanes of opportunities that we didn't necessarily see before. And it's going to enable us to be able to take advantage and get the knowledge and understandings that we truly need to be able to make the best decisions for our healthcare. So regardless of what president actually takes a hold of the presidency, they're still going to need diversity. They're still going to need equity. They're still going to need inclusion in all aspects in order to be able to find a success that's needed in the clinical trials.
And so with that, I say thank you so very much. Now, before we end this, what I do want to ask you is, so if there are men out here and they want to know more information in reference to clinical trials, they want to know more information into, okay, Genesis Medical Research, is there information that you want to leave us with in reference to actually how to reach you, how to reach Genesis Medical Group, or any other, once again, this is all about collaboration, or any other um, cohorts that you have that might be have their own have their own clinical research group going on, or might be interested in getting male participants. Is there any information that you can share with the viewers of this video that will help them to be able to take the next step forward?
So I'm a very big advocate of clinicaltrials.org. When you're researching clinical trials, they have the most information that's up to date and current. As long as you put in the information of what it is, the disease that you're looking for, you'll be able to find something within your area. My name is Barry Holmes Jr. Again, my email is barry.holmesjr@genesismedresearch.com. Feel free to email me there with any questions about anything in regards to diversity and equity inclusion in clinical trials. We also can view our webpage where we have our certification at gmrg.getlearnworlds.com. There you'll be able to see some of the courses that we've created that are educating all of our patient-facing healthcare professionals on how to engage and recruit us into clinical trials. And you can also find us on social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Genesis Medical Research Group.
Okay, and with that being said, I do want to actually also add that you can also check out our website. Your videos will be going up on the website. The video should be up by the end of June for all of the men's month videos should be up. We also have my YouTube channel where you can actually also go ahead and check the information out, because I know that the information that was given at the end was a lot, but I wanted him to get it out because you need to know. As well as, once again, as always, if you need a copy of this video because you want to actually share it with your cohorts or your partners, please let us know so that we can make sure that you get a copy of this video, because this video is all about sharing and it's all about growing our communities. And when I say our communities, we cannot, ladies, once again, we can't do this without our gentlemen. We just can't. I thank you, the Thomas Meddy Helps Foundation. Thanks all of you men for being there for us. And like I said, ladies, this month it's time for us to be there for them. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and ask you just finally, if you could say three things, leaving this discussion tonight, if you could say three things to the men out there, what three things? Give me some barbershop talk. What three things do you want the men that are listening to this video? What three things do you want them to walk away with?
The first thing I would say to the men is to follow your gut. Follow your gut. And even though as vague and open as that sounds, for men that are walking the path and that have a wife and they have a family that they've created, and they understand that their relationship to their Lord and Savior and they're connected, understanding that we do know right from wrong, and we do know that there are things that even though we can't see it, we understand that we're able to step up and step into it. And the Lord wouldn't have brought us to it if we couldn't get through it. The second thing I would say is, Remain steadfast. The journey is short, but it's long. So stay the course. And lastly, I would say continue to love strong and love hard. Our ladies love it. Our ladies need it. Our families love it. Our families need it. It's the strength and it's the heart that makes it great. So continue to do that, fellas. Continue to do it.
And so, with that being said, I want to wish everyone, whether it's the evening when you're watching this, whether it's noon, whatever point in time of day it is for you, just please continue to have a great, a great day, a great evening. And please, men, think about becoming a participant in a clinical trial, especially if you're having currently medical conditions that you're dealing with. Consider thinking about becoming a male participant, helping the men that are here now and the ones that will be here in the future, because it's all about us. And if we don't do it, who else is going to do it? So with that being said, good night and thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.